How you doing? Is everyone, can anyone hear me? First of all, welcome to the live. Wait till someone jumps on. There we are. There you are. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Are you live already?
I believe so, yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to bring me on beforehand. That's cool.
Straight up.
That's fine with me.
I only just finished the meeting, so
okay.
We get straight into it. How's the feed? Is it quite snappy?
Yeah, it looks good. I look extremely saturated.
What are you using to shoot?
My FX3, but it always, when it goes through, it always changes everything up. Yeah, can you hide me for a second? I want to change some stuff.
Easy, man. All right, so if anyone is here, we will talk about cameras. So I got Josh in today. He is a creator from the States, which most of my subscribers are from the States. And yeah, we're going to be talking about cameras in general, A7IV, and his usage of the A7IV and other cameras, FX3. We're going to be talking about the A7S III and the FX6 as well, and also the lack of cameras that we pretty much don't have in the world right now as well.
Does that look better?
So dude? How's it look?
I don't know. I can't see. Bring you back in.
There we are. Welcome, welcome.
We'll roll with that.
Did you change the settings, did you?
Yeah, I changed the profile and stuff. Yeah, I'm on the FX3 today. It's weird. Every time I do a lot of live streaming, and I feel like no matter how it looks coming out of your camera and your monitor on this, it always just looks different when it goes through the internet. Like looks like our white balance is completely different, but it's all good, man.
Yeah. Mine on the A7IV, when you connect it directly through, it takes off S-Log and it forces you to shoot in no picture profile.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is the no picture profile straight out of camera.
That's what I was just using, but I looked like completely saturated, and so now I'm using something different. But
you're just a colorful, vibrant person.
Jason, happy to be here, man. Happy to be here.
So yeah, we're going to be talking about A7IV, the FX3, all Sony stuff, Canon if we dare as well.
Sure.
But yeah, we'll start off with let's talk about. Well, I don't want to reveal too much because I've got that video dropping in a couple of days of both of us talking about the A7IV. I've also got Chris on there as well. I ended up getting Chris Brockhurst on.
Yeah.
So
we're working on another video. We can spoil that. Like, hopefully we'll get that together. That's all right. We'll get a little teaser.
Yeah. First of all, we better say hello to whoever's in the room. We got Slice 2 Pads. Hello from Boston. Are you close to Boston?
No, but I grew up in Boston.
Oh, nice place.
Yes. I didn't want to live there as an adult after leaving and coming back, but yeah, it's a very cool place for sure, especially if you've never been there.
It's east side, isn't it?
Yep, northeast.
Northeast. Nice. We have Nasir Muhammad. Love your content. Thanks, man. Here we go. We got My Fave Tech, just wanted to know the topic. I have the A7IV and loving it. It's got the 24-70 2.8 Sigma. That's a cool lens. Yeah, I haven't had the pleasure to try it, but I've seen a lot of reviews out there, and it looks really, really good, especially for the price as well. Have you used it, Josh?
A little bit. A buddy of mine has it, so I'm familiar with the lens. I know it's kind of everyone's go-to, especially at the price point. It's pretty killer. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the 24-70 2.8. I use the G Master, but yeah, I think the Sigma is an awesome lens.
Yeah,
they have a slightly different look to them. Oh, the Tamron, yeah. They have a slightly different look to them. I prefer the Sony glass over the other ones, just personal preference. But they're both great.
Yeah. I love the linear motors in the G Masters. It's just so good for manual focus pulls. Andrew, I just got off the meeting with him. Do you prefer photo or video lenses, specifically manual for video? Let's go with you, Josh. What do you prefer?
I don't own any manual lenses, so I just been using photo lenses. I don't do a ton of manual focus. When I do, it's generally for B-roll, and it's very like specific shots. But if I'm filming myself, obviously I'm using autofocus or an interview or something like that. So to me, it works fine for me because I'm not using it for like all-purpose focusing.
Yeah. For me, for video, I prefer manual for the fact that you have full control, but that's the reason why I bought the G Master lenses. Like I got the 24, 35, and 85, and it's just that the linear motors in that is pretty much, it's like a manual lens, and it's just continuous. You can focus, pull, and get the exact same spot each time. So, but that's put me in a tough position because then I love throwing it into autofocus and just being like, just keep me in focus. Yeah, I guess it really depends on what you use it for, hey? We have David. Have you seen David's stuff?
Yeah, I've seen David's channel from time to time. What's up, David?
Yeah, that's cool. Joining in. If anyone wants to subscribe to David, he does a whole bunch of Sony content, heaps of lives. I jumped on his live the other day. Yeah, it was cool. Talking about a whole bunch of new Sony stuff coming. But yeah, let's go. D-Rock.
Doc Rock.
Doc Rock. Who's Doc Rock? Have you heard of Doc Rock before?
Absolutely, man.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, Doc's awesome.
Team beard.
Yeah,
he's
he's got a pretty good beard. Yeah, for sure.
Damn it. I'm old and this is all I can grow. Still going through puberty.
It's all right. I got nothing up top, so I know you got a nice head of hair. So
complement each other.
There you go.
I got the hair, you got the beard.
Yep, absolutely.
I'm gonna slaughter some of these names. I am very sorry. I can't even pronounce that. Is it Mujahed Esali from Jordan? That's cool, man. Welcome. Yeah. So Doc Rock says the same thing. The A7IV with the cam link, it keeps the picture profile. That's interesting. I wouldn't want to shoot in S-Log anyway because it's so flat. But
yeah, so
you could probably throw it in S-Cinetone, right?
Yeah, when I first logged in, I was using no picture profile. I'm using the FX3 right now, and I just looked way too saturated. I should have just went in there and turned the saturation down in the camera. But I'm using S-Log, and I'm using a LUT in my Ninja 5 right now. That's how this is working.
Yeah. Nice.
Custom white balance.
Do you put a white card in front and do custom white balance there? Gray card?
Yep.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, so for everyone, I just clip it on my chair here and then go back and get the white balance. But yeah, I've done that, and it helps a lot.
Yeah. That's a shit thing about the FX6. When it comes to white balancing, you need the full screen to be covered to white balance. Oh, I don't know why they've done that.
Yeah, I forgot
Very
about
difficult.
that. Yeah, the white balance on all the alpha cameras are just amazing because you can move the box. Like even if it's just a small image, you can just move the box over to whatever you need it to, and
yeah,
it's always really accurate. It's really close. Like when you pull it in your software, you'll look at the white balance. It's pretty close for sure.
Yeah. I don't know why. It's really weird sometimes when they do the firmware updates. It's like they'll skip on this camera and they'll put something else on that camera. It's just like, what's going on? Don't know. Mujahed says, I just got my Canon M50. Got the 50 f1.4 on it, and I like the performance. Have you tried the M50 before yourself? Because you said you've used a couple of Canons.
Yeah, M50. That was my first camera that I bought. Was the M50. I started my YouTube channel, my farming channel. I used a phone for like 10 or 15 videos, and I bought the M50. So the camera's been out for a while, but I mean, it got a lot of people started. It's a really like solid little camera. nowadays it's, you know, a little outdated for what it can do. But I mean, if it's working for you, that's awesome. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's a super simple camera. I used it a lot.
The F1.4 as well would look quite nice. It's an APS-C camera, right?
Yeah, so it'd be 1.6 or so.
Yeah. And a 70, 75-ish, or actually the Canon's like a 1.6 crop, isn't it?
Yeah, 1.6. That'd be like an 80.
There you go. Oh, that'd be nice. Good portrait sort of camera. What else we got? Ecamm. I haven't heard of Ecamm before.
Yeah, I use
What's
Ecamm for my streaming. It's a paid service, only on Apple. And it's great. Like I use such a fraction of what it can do, but I like it because it does stuff like, you know, you have like putting up the comments on the screen, and it just works very natively in the Apple ecosystem. But it is pricey unless you use it a lot. You know, it's like $40 a month for the HD version.
Ooh, yeah, that's very pricey.
If you buy it like a year at a time, it gets cheaper. But yeah, there's a ton of features. You can switch cameras and screen share, and I find it to work better than I tried StreamYard a while ago. I like Ecamm better. I think the quality's a little bit better, but that was just my experience.
Yeah, because I'm using StreamYard at the moment.
Yeah, we got Jared Smink in here too. Yeah, everyone loves Ecamm. It is pricey though.
Yeah. You can tell he's Boston by the playoff beard. Go Sox. It's is it the Boston, is it Red Sox?
Yeah, this is hilarious. You trying to play like you know, man. Yeah, the Red Sox are my team for sure. It's awesome.
I don't follow baseball. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
They've
been in a strike for like all of winter. They couldn't get on board with the players union and the team, so they just agreed they're starting the season late this year.
Oh God, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Money, isn't it? It's always about money, unfortunately. Anyway, let's get on to the discussion point of the A7IV. We may as well start talking a little bit about it. And you've been having some overheating problems. Tell me.
Yeah.
Let's discuss.
Yeah. So, Jason, I know like we connected because we were chatting it up about the A7IV and how much we love it. And I put out a video a couple weeks ago, like praising the camera. And I've been grabbing it more than, you know, and I mean, that's my other camera's FX3, but, you know, A7S III, whatever. I really love the image quality, the autofocus, the dynamic range, the focus breathing compensation. I think in general, it's like it's not like version 2, but it's like a little bit better than what we have in the FX3 and the A7S III. But I was having no problems at all with overheating, and I had it overheat on me 3 times in, let's say, the last month. And it's really started to question my, you know, if I can rely on it. So the 2 examples it started with, I was doing basically this. I was doing a Zoom call and then recording. I do these like conversations with creators. It's kind of like a podcast or a vlogcast or whatever you want to call it on my channel. So we chat for like an hour, and then I hit record, and like 15 minutes in, the camera overheated. So at that point, I was using a USB-C to power the camera with a normal battery in it, but USB-C to power it. And I thought maybe it was that. So the next time was like a week or 2 later, I tried it with a dummy battery because, you know, Jason and I talked about that's a good option for a lot of cameras. Same thing happened, pretty much the same timing. So I was like, all right, well, I can't rely on this for this situation. So now I'm using my FX3 tonight because I know that will not overheat. But then I was using my A7 IV filming. I'm working on a course right now, you know, doing long talking head, you know, it's not just running continuously for hours, but I was outside. It was 75 degrees out, 75 Fahrenheit for all of you Celsius people. And it was just, it overheated on me. And like you know, I'm in the South in the United States, so it gets pretty warm in the summer, and right now it's March. So I can't rely on this for professional work as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to try to expand on that idea a little bit. But that's been my experience, and I know it's been really interesting because I've been scouring the internet looking for other people's takes on it, and like, because I've been hearing a lot of overheating, and Jason's like, you're like, I didn't overheat at all for me. So, and it's not consistent because after that happened, I tried to recreate the problem, and it ran for 4 hours without overheating in the same exact setup. So I don't know what's going on, but and some people say they got a bad copy, like they got one that overheated more, they returned it. I actually had a second copy of this because I love the camera. I bought another one, and it happened on both of those cameras. So it's not copy to copy for me. That's my experience been with it. It's really frustrating because this camera is unbelievable. I love the image that comes out of this camera. And when you're someone that's filming yourself a lot and you have to watch yourself talking on the screen as you're editing, you notice all the little details that, you know, maybe you would miss if you didn't work with the same footage over and over again. So that's been my experience with the overheating. I'm not sure what I'm going to do at this point because you can't buy any other cameras right now. There are none available.
That's a killer. Hey, this is what can Sony do? Like, they'll have to start producing their own chips, I guess.
You can't get an A7S III, an FX3, or an FX6 right now. They're out of stock everywhere. Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Nuts.
But, oh well, it's luckily you've got the FX3 anyway, so that can run forever. It's got that internal fan, so yeah, I have no issues with that camera. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so in terms of like the overheating, like I've had zero issues.
But we were talking, and you weren't doing like long run times. You were doing, you know, clips on gimbals and, you know, here and there
always
kind
bursts.
of stuff. Yeah, bursts.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's the extended runtime, which is what's causing it. Which is weird because, you know, when I first got the camera, Chris Brockhurst and I collaborated on some overheating tests so we could cover more, like, in just as the camera came out, because that was like my biggest concern was every time you have an oversampled camera without a fan, like it's gonna overheat, like R5, R6, right? And so I was really concerned about it. I literally had no problem for like 2 months, and then this just started happening 2 or 3 months, and now I just can't rely on it, you know? I used it on 2 professional shoots, and didn't have a problem. But, you know, now it's like,
yeah,
I can't be in the middle of an interview and my camera shuts off, you know?
that's it. Yeah, but you'll always sort of have 2 cameras on you, right?
Yeah, for sure. But like if I'm doing a 2-camera interview setup, which is what I was doing last week, like I only have the FX3 and the A7IV, so I had to rely on it.
Yeah. That's tough, especially if the A7IV is their only camera. That's pretty scary. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I think you have to realize that the A7IV is really a hybrid camera, and it is an amazing hybrid camera for that. But if you need a video camera that's really like you rely on, you make a living on it, for me, I can't recommend this for that. But if you're a hybrid shooter doing some YouTube content, it's awesome.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest points that I brought up in my latest video that we'll drop in a couple of days, is that if you are a video shooter making a living, that's where you'd have to go, the A7S III, FX3, FX6, because they're solely video cameras. They're specifically designed for that. So, but if you're a photographer, man, best of everything. It's great. Let's go through some of the questions.
Yeah, it looks like there's a lot of comments in there.
Yeah, I haven't checked them out. Ro from Reynolds, hi guys from Brisbane. Oh, right down the road from me. It's great. How you doing? The digital, is it Gorilla? Question regarding the shutter. Besides common tips, what do you suggest in terms of IBIS and OSS? What shutter? I'm assuming regular. I don't know what that even is. Do you want to jump in on this one?
I don't know what that is. Is there any? Yeah. Maybe there's some issues with the IBIS. I'm not really sure.
Oh, okay. Well, if we're talking specifically A7IV, even has the FX3 got digital stabilization?
No, it just has the active. It has the standard and the active.
Oh, but it's got active, so it's at least the same as the S3 and A7IV-ish.
Yeah, I wanted to do a side-by-side on those two. Maybe while I have these cameras, maybe I should probably do that. There's been some people that say that the A7IV IBIS is a little more natural. It just could be in their head, though. I don't know. I haven't done a test, so I'm not sure. But they have the same standard and active modes. But they don't have a just digital like you can get in like Canon's cameras.
Yeah, I'd love that. I'd love to see that.
If they put that in FX6, that would have been a game changer.
Oh, I know, right?
Just
it's
something.
Hard because,
just something. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Because like I was saying, Andrew Murphy that I shoot with, he's got the Canon C70 and he's got the digital stabilization. And it's just like, at least he's got some form of stabilization. I've got nothing when we shoot.
Yeah, and the other thing is that like the RF, like the 2.8 zooms, which is what I shoot on a lot, because I did own the C70 for a while, and I thought that the electronic stabilization in that camera plus the ISS in the lens worked pretty well as a combination. But like Sony, you go FX6, which is one of my issues with the FX6 when I had it, was like, okay, nothing in the body, and then none of the fast zooms have stabilization in the lenses, so you literally have nothing.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough one because they expect professional filmmakers to have full camera rigs, to have, you know, full gimbal setups and tripods and whatnot. So they're kind of pointing it towards more professional filmmakers who already have those kind of setups ready. But it is meant to be, you know, that documentary camera as well, really. But I guess that's probably where you'd go for your 28 to 135 with the OSS in it, which is a great lens.
Or the 24 to 105 f4, which I know you've talked about and you like that lens.
Yeah, I've got that's pretty much my main lens now. I had the 28 to 135 on loan, and I couldn't justify the price, to be honest.
Yeah.
Going to the next one. Doc Rock said the Tamron 2875 is the bomb. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, some say performing better than the G Master. There's some fighting words. It is true that Sony owns part of Tamron.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they've got, I think it was like 40% they own. Yeah, which is, I guess, why they allow Tamron to use a lot of their autofocus firmware or something. Talk to the cameras better.
Okay. The thing about that lens is I would miss the 4mm on the wide end just because I generally, when I'm shooting documentaries and just shooting other people, I love the 24 to 70 because I can basically run with that lens and do everything. I just miss that 24 to 28. I'm often like at 24 and trying to back up if I need a wide shot. So that's my only issue with that lens. I don't care about the 70 to 75. I never really go above 50 or 60. So I don't know. But yeah, it's also way more affordable and probably a lot lighter too. That G Master lens is massive. Yeah,
it's a big beast. That's for sure. Oh yeah, that's a lens that I haven't tried, the 135.
Ooh.
Have you tried the 135?
No, but I have a friend that has one, and he's like, it just destroys everything for portrait work. Like it's one of those lenses that is special. Like, you know, there's certain lenses that just there's something about them. That's definitely that lens. So, and my friend bought for photo, not for video, but the 7200 2.8 Mark II. And he's like, I can't justify, like, I'm going to use the 135 for portraits over the 7200. So, but it depends on your other lenses. Like if you have a 35 or a 50, or you have a 24 to 70, like it depends on what your other lenses are. But if you're like going to make money, like shooting portraits, the 135, like it's well known that that's like one of the best lenses Sony's ever made.
That's a f1.8, is it?
Yeah, 1.8.
Interesting. Yeah, because I was going to get that, and then I decided on the 85, and man, the 85 sucks. It really does.
All right, good. I don't feel like I have to buy one then. What do you not like about it, Jason?
It's soft, wide open. It has a lot of chromatic aberration. Autofocus is it doesn't have the new XD linear focusing system in there, so it's very slow. They designed it when I was on a Zoom call once with Sony. They said they designed these specifically for photo, and now that video is a very big thing with the alpha cameras, it's just not up to par with the focusing system.
Well, they're supposed to. Yes. I've heard rumors about a new 85-1.2. I don't know if that's real or whatever, but
that would be good. Well, you'd imagine so because of the 50 f1.2 that they've just released.
That lens is insane. Have you used that lens before?
I haven't. No.
Yeah, don't rent it or borrow it. You'll have to buy it. Like that lens is ridiculous.
I'm in a tough position because I've got the 24, 35, and 85. It's just 50. Okay. It's like, do I really go the 50 or should I just walk a little bit further forward?
Yeah, I don't know. That lens is pretty cool. I mean, you can rock. I like a 24 a lot. That's what I'm shooting on the 24 right now for this. So, for me, it's like 24-50 is probably a good combo. I can't now. I have a 24. Like, do I need a 35? You know, like
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm using the 24 as well.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah.
That lens is awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. But I still 35 is my favorite. I love 35. Right there.
Nice.
I
I need you to come over and decorate for me, Jason. Your background, like, such a flex. Like, look at me. I just got a blue background over here.
I only designed it just specifically so I could store gear, but it ended up becoming my backdrop. So it's
perfect for the kind of content you do, man.
AJ Core TV says pretty much hello. We'll keep going through these, I think. What do we got? Oh, David Osler says he pretty much uses standard or S Cinetone. Rarely uses S-Log. I'm the opposite. I have to use S-Log just for that dynamic range. Like,
me too.
It's such a big difference, in my opinion, when you're shooting video.
Especially when you're outside. That's for me. Like I noticed that because I was shooting on the A7S III and FX3, shooting the S-Log 3 all the time. And then I picked up, I switched to Canon for a while. Of course, the C70 has even more than those cameras in terms of dynamic range and C-Log 2. But like I was on the R5 and in C-Log 3, like you're losing like a stop or two. And it makes a huge difference, especially when you're shooting outside, because you either have to decide, like, am I going to lose shadows or am I going to lose highlights? And with S-Log 3, like, you just don't. Like, you can pretty much save everything, which is, yeah, I always shoot an S-Log for everything. Even this, like, once you do the conversion once, you can save that preset, you know?
Yeah. The main thing is like, if you're shooting in harsh sunlight, even like sunset, when you get that, like, edge of the sunlight, you don't want that to be blown out. And with not having S-Log, like, it generally is blown out because you're trying to expose nicely for the skin tones.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain situations that you need, like if you're streaming or, you know, you need super quick turnaround. But like, I don't know, there's such amazing LUTs out now too. Like they'll do most of the heavy lifting for you. And I think I'm not like saying that David's in this situation, but I have a lot of people say to me, like, I'm not shooting in log. And I'm like, it kind of like makes the job easier for you once you can like basically color correct, because you don't have to, like, you can actually be a lazier shooter in terms of exposure. Like you can miss it a little bit more because you have so much latitude when you're grading. I don't know. I'm addicted to shooting in log. I like have to do it all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. AJ says, I have the A6100. Have you tried the A6100 before, Josh?
I've tried so many cameras. No, I think I tried the 6600. I had that for a little while. But very similar camera. It doesn't have any of the picture profiles.
Pretty much same sensor. So
yeah, it's the only difference there is it has a smaller battery and it doesn't have IBIS. Although the IBIS in the 6600 is pretty not that good. So yeah, the image, like all those cameras have the same sensor. Like you can get a great image out of the A6100, but there's no log profiles, there's no HLG, it's only no picture profile in the 6100.
Yeah, that's tough because I've still got the A6000 of all cameras. Old school.
Yeah.
And
but there's some great crop
profile.
lenses, like the Sigma primes, like the 16, 30. Those lenses are a bargain. They're so sharp. Yeah, those things are awesome. So you pair that on the 6100. Those are great. That would make a great
Absolutely.
combo.
Yeah, I used the 16 on the A7IV in a commercial because the 20 when I was shooting, I think it was the hero shot, the final shot, and I was just too close. I was shooting in 50 frames, and obviously you got that 1.5 times crop, and I had the 24, and it was just, I was still not wide enough, so I had to go to the 16, which turned it into the 24, and all was sweet. So yeah, would have been fine if I had the FX3 because, you know, obviously you don't have that crop in slow motion.
Yep.
But yeah, Jared Spink says, yeah, there you go. Two of my favorite creators. Great stuff. Do you know Jared?
Yeah. Jared and I did.
Yep.
Yeah, we did some recording together. I was on his podcast and he did a couple videos with me too.
Oh, sick. That's cool. He's a video creator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he does real estate photo, video stuff, and then does a awesome podcast. You can check it out. It's called The Hive. He interviews creators and giving Jared a big plug here. But it's totally deserved.
Yeah.
He works hard and is a super nice guy. So go check that out.
Yeah, I'll definitely check him out. Yeah, for sure. Zhao Miguel, is it Zhao? I think it's Zhao. Is the depth of field the same on the 35mm lens as on the 24 and APS-C mode in the A1? Well, that's interesting. I'm assuming that's with f-stop equated, right? In the A1. So what's your mathematics like? What's 1.5 times 24 is
36.
Almost 30. Yeah, it's almost 35, right? Yeah, the 36. So the depth of field.
I don't understand the question. What two is it? The A1 specifically?
I would imagine just any alpha camera in APS-C mode. But if you're shooting full frame with 35mm, it'll always be like you'll have more depth of field than shooting in APS-C mode on 24mm. Even though it's the same focal length, because you're putting into APS-C mode, your depth of field's less.
All right, I just dropped a video in the chat there. I made a really detailed video about crop sensors and depth of field. Like, go watch that. You'll there's a lot of nerdy math in there, but if you watch it, you'll understand how it all works. I promise. I think I just dropped it. Hopefully I dropped it in the right spot.
Yeah, oh my God, there's a lot of questions.
All right, so we should...
I'm trying to find your... where's the link? Did you just post it?
I just posted it, so it might be a little delayed. I'm not sure.
Okay, yeah. When it comes in, I'll
but everyone
pop it
else
up
is in
on
there.
the
You guys
screen.
can check it out. Yeah, so remember the things that change depth of field is going to be not the sensor size. It's based on the focal length of the lens, and that never changes, and the distance to the subject. Those are the two things that you have to think about. So what happens is, like, you'll say, like, oh, a 24mm on a crop sensor. Well, when you put on the crop sensor, it's now 35. So what do? You back up to get the same field of view, thus changing the depth of field. The depth of field does not change. It's because you're wind up changing the position of the camera. So it's not like straightforward like that. Go watch that video. It didn't get a lot of views, but it's super nerdy. I definitely recommend working through that.
Absolutely. If it pops up in the link in the comments, I can't see it. What is this?
I don't know, man.
Is it in there? Are you sure?
I posted it. Whatever. I can send it to you later. You can add it to the description, I guess.
Yeah. Definitely check in the description below if you're watching this outside of the live. Let's keep going through these. James Godet says, hello, gentlemen. Hi, James. We'll keep smashing through a lot of these because there's a lot in there. Do you guys edit with proxy files? That's a really good question. I used to edit with proxy files when I was just editing on a laptop because I couldn't edit in full. But I don't anymore because the computers are getting crazy good these days. And I don't shoot anything above 4K. How about yourself, Josh?
I've never used a proxy in my life.
Yeah, it's only good if, I guess, actually R5. R5 was really bad to edit with, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't think I shot in the compressed format though. I don't remember, but I had a Mac Mini and it was fine. Like it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it really depends on computer speed and even editing software.
Yeah, I didn't have any real issues with any of the Sony codecs. I don't usually shoot in the HS. I don't know if you do, but yeah, I don't even deal with proxies. I don't know. I just buy a faster computer. I know that's not possible for everybody, but I really like to have a quick workflow where I'm not wasting time. Like anything that I can do, because time is so limited. I'm super busy. So if I can do something, if it's buy something or save up a little bit money and invest in something so I can save time later, like that's my workflow. Like I don't want to deal with proxies, and I never even learned how to do it because I'm like, I'll figure out how to work around it. So that's just the way I've been approaching it.
Yeah. Proxies are really good to work with though. If anyone does work with it, it's literally just a click of a button and it switches over at the end.
Oh, Doc
But-
Rock says people can't post links on YouTube unless Jason makes them moderators. Anyways, I sent you the link, but you can.
Right. There you go.
Thanks, Doc Rock.
Send it to me. Send it to
I
me
sent
on,
it in the
on
private
Instagram.
chat. I sent it on the
And then,
private chat if you can click over there.
There we go.
But if you, yeah. If anyone wants to go nerd out about. No joke. I had all these questions because I was like, what did I do? Oh, I was gonna make a video about like the crop mode on the A7 IV, and I punched in and I was like, wait a minute. I always heard that you have to adjust the exposure when you crop in, and I had all these questions, so I just like went in and figured out all the math behind it, and I don't know. Anyways, once you watch it, you'll be like, okay.
Yeah. Sometimes those videos are interesting. I think I was going to do when I first got, I think it was the A7 IV when it first came out, a video that you just did, and it was fabulous about is crop mode better than clear image zoom.
Oh, yeah.
That was a great video. If anyone wants to check that one out, yeah, it's a great video. But I wanted to do that, and I didn't feel like it was worth it because I found out, I don't know if you saw in 1080p, if you use clear image zoom and crop mode, it's almost like 4K quality. It's ridiculous.
Huh.
Because it uses such a small part of your sensor, and it's like a 1-to-1 readout, and it's crazy sharp. But
I remember you posted that video, but I don't remember all the details. I'll have to go watch it.
Oh, crazy! It's like magic. Literally, the 1080p looks like 4K.
That's crazy.
But in saying that, you're cropping in 1.5 times, then you're using 2 times clear image zoom on top.
Okay.
So the focal length is crazy.
It's just cool. That's another thing that I miss a lot about shooting on the shooting on the FX3 or any of those cameras, like not having crop mode. Like I love that. I even like set a custom button on my camera so I punch in 50% whenever I want. It's really handy. I use it a lot.
Yeah. Boom mic. The boom mic is the Synco D1. Synco is a pretty, I suppose, unknown brand, but I love it. It's good quality. I think, I don't know if you've heard of, have you heard of, he's an American, the Boom guy or something? I can't remember. The Soundy. I don't know what I'm talking about now. He's a sound booth guy, and he does all mic reviews, and he compared the Synco to, what was it, the Sennheiser MKH616 or something? The
416.
416, yeah, and it was such very similar audio quality. Crazy for less than a quarter of the price. Yeah, I was just watching David's video on the A7S III. I think he was doing a live, and he said he uses it for stills, which absolutely, it's a fabulous camera for stills, because a lot of the time, if you don't crop in, you might not even need, 24 or 33 megapixels. 12 sometimes is enough, depending on where you post.
So Chris and I were talking about making a video about this. We never got around to it, but we want to talk about, before the A7 IV came out, I think the A7S III was the best stills camera that Sony had, because, well, I guess it would be before the A1 as well, but like the new color science that's in this latest generation of cameras, the A7S III, FX3, A7 IV, A1, all those cameras, to me, are so much better than the previous generations, even more than the A7R IV, obviously the A7 III. Like, I personally would rather shoot a 12 megapixel on the A7S III, and that was just my personal preference. Yeah, it's underrated, like, as a photo camera for sure, David. Totally agree on that.
Yeah. Which is interesting. I wonder if he uses it, because he does a lot of wedding photography. I wonder if he uses it for weddings.
That would be interesting.
Yeah. But at least the file sizes would be so good.
So nice. Yeah.
All right, let's keep going through. Danny Tran says, does it overheat when streaming in 1080 or only 4K? I think that's directed to you, Josh.
Yeah, so I tried a couple different options. I think the camera... I don't remember exactly the settings. If it was set in 4K and outputting in 1080 or outputting in 4K, I think I tried a few different combinations, and it didn't seem to matter. So I can't remember what it was set at now because I did it twice, and I probably changed it both times. So it wasn't super scientific. But when I went to do my testing and tried to repeat it, I did try those, shooting in 4K, streaming to my, to my computer in 4K into 1080, because you can change that in the camera. I thought maybe the downsampling in the camera was causing more of an issue, like if it was taking that 4K image and changing it to 1080 in the camera, that would add extra heat, or if I just shot in 1080 and exported in 1080. But there's still all that downsampling going on from the 7K image, so yeah, I tried a bunch of different things. I couldn't get it to I couldn't reproduce the problem though, which was driving me crazy. And I know I was texting you, Jason. I was like, yeah, I tried this, I tried that, I tried this. Like I couldn't get it to do it again. But then a week or two later, it overheated just filming outside. And I was shooting in 4K.
Yeah, that's frustrating, man.
I know if I knew what the problem is, I would just avoid that combo, but
yeah,
more testing has to be done, I guess.
That's it. I think this is when I was saying in HD, when you put it into APS-C mode, 2x crop or clear image zoom, it's not clearer than 4K. It's clearer than the standard 1080. It's almost like 4K. If you check out that video, it's mind-boggling how it works. It's really, really crisp. Now, I did explain that the only case you would probably use this is to get a little bit of extra reach and smaller files. Like you lose pretty much all eye autofocus like you do with any clear image zoom, which could be crucial for a lot of people. But if you're doing like maybe wildlife photography or videography and just wanted to do a little bit of manual focusing, could be handy. I don't know, honestly know when anyone use it. I just happened to stumble across it, and it's there if anyone needs it.
I think the nice thing about the A7 IV, though, is even if you have a little bit wider of a shot, obviously in photos you can crop in because you have 33 megapixels. But even in video, like I've gotten away with cropping in quite a bit, and you can't tell because there's so much detail there versus the other cameras that you can get away with a little bit more of a crop anyways, I find.
Yeah, I did notice that because I shot, when I was doing the A7 IV video, I had the A7 IV in my hand and I was shooting back on the FX6 as my main camera. And it's like, when I cropped in, it was kind of soft. I'm like, those extra resolution on the A7 IV was just, you could notice it, definitely. It was great. So Danny Tran, see, this is very interesting because he's obviously ordered the A7 IV and he's getting worried because he wants to do a lot of live streaming. Like for me, I've had zero issues, but there have been other people that have had issues. So it's kind of like, yeah, we're at a
I was
standstill,
streaming
right?
and recording internally. So I think that's where the problem happened. But that made me nervous because, I was basically using my camera as a webcam like I am right now. And then I was like, okay, now I'm going to start recording. And I hit record. And 15 minutes after I started recording, it was a problem. But I couldn't get it to just overheat just sitting here, just talking, spitting out an HDMI image. But what bothered me was that if I use this with a monitor, like on set somewhere as a reference monitor, like watching the image, like that's the same situation to me. So if I had a long take and I was using HDMI out, like maybe that would overheat. So that was my concern about using it as my main camera.
Yeah.
Jared shoots on Black Magic.
6K or 4K?
He's got a 6K, I think, or a 6K Pro.
Yeah.
I can't remember, one or the other. Yeah, I think the 6K.
Yeah, I had someone the other day ask me, what's better camera, A7 IV or Blackmagic Pocket? I'm like, they're completely different cameras. What are you shooting?
Yeah.
What are you using it for? I just said, in my mind, I was just like, do you need autofocus?
Yeah, absolutely.
A7 IVs you go. But yeah, FX3 is a phenomenal camera. If I didn't have the FX6, I would have the FX3. 100%.
Yeah.
Doc Rock's going hard in the comments.
Well, Doc Rock's like he does a lot of live streaming, so that's why he's chiming in on this.
He's in Hawaii. There you go. So it's pretty hot in Hawaii, right? I don't know.
Doc can't talk to us. I've never been to Hawaii,
so-
but yeah.
I was just,
You're talking to me.
asking
I've
you.
never been to
Yeah,
Hawaii. The weird thing though with my overheating stuff in my office here is just like room temp. It's not even hot in here, so I don't know, man. I got to do more testing. I'm just so busy right now. I can't just like run tests over and over again and pay attention. So I kind of
That's That's the hard thing about testing, hey, is that you spend so much time like testing it, and then you've actually got to create the video itself.
Yeah, and you know, I think the thing that I'm realizing as a content creator and a videographer is that like once the camera overheats on you, even if you think you know how to get around it or whatever, it's always in the back of your mind like it might overheat. So if you're vlogging or you're doing long talking head or you're doing an interview, you're always like looking over, like is it overheating? And for me, like I need the tech to get out of the way and not be an issue. It was the same thing I had with the C70, and why I eventually sold that camera was the autofocus was not nearly as reliable as the Sony cameras. And I would be doing an interview, like I do these like farm tours and interviews, and I'm out and about, and the subject was well lit, and it would just jump to the background for no reason. And I'm like, we're not underexposed here. Like we shouldn't have a problem. So I'm constantly watching, and then I get back, and like there's one crucial part of the interview, and the thing is just like jumping back and forth. But I'm just like, I you know, as a solo creator and someone who like, I need the stuff to be reliable. So that's my issue with the autofocus, with the overheating. And then you know, I'm talking to you and you're like, I've never had a problem. And I'm like, well, once you do, then you kind of can't not stop thinking about it. Same thing with the R5. The same thing happened on the R5.
Yeah. And I was saying in my recent video that like I am fortunate enough to have the FX6 just in case there was a problem. But even I've still got the A7 III if there was a backup camera issue. If I was shooting that, you know, dual interview cam, I could just quickly switch. But yeah, a lot of people aren't, and the A7 IV could be their sole camera. So I really hope it's just a firmware issue, because with the, you know, inconsistencies of body, it feels like it's a firmware issue. It really does.
I don't know, or there's some manufacturing inconsistencies. I'm not sure. It just seems very random. Like the people that comment, and we all have the auto temp set to high. Everybody, like just gotta put that out there.
Auto temp set to high. Screen flipped out.
Yeah. We got all the stuff going on.
Lens on the body.
Does lens make it? Wait, I don't know how you shoot a video without a lens, but that keeps it from overheating.
Yeah. Oh no. Some people were like sitting in bed and having the cap still on, and you could imagine it just be keeping the heat in there and not going through the lens. So yeah.
I even thought I ran the test and it didn't overheat. I thought it was autofocus, so I put like a picture of somebody here and like had it autofocus on them. Like I tried everything. Like I was like I couldn't get it to overheat. So.
Oh God.
Anyways.
That's hilarious. Johnny says, curious about your thoughts on uses of tube lights. Thinking of the recently released Nanlite Pavo tube. Yeah, the T87X is a brand new one. They just released, I think it was last week. And I've got the, if you can see there, the 30Cs and the 15C. They are fabulous tube lights, but they're quite expensive. But in terms of like using them as like a rim light, hair light, fabulous. You can use them as a key light because they're a quite large source, so they generally come off quite soft. But they are RGB as well, so you can change to any color you want, which is really good. Have you used tube lights yourself?
No, I'm not a real YouTuber yet. I'm just kidding. No, I haven't. I've been tempted to like pick some up to play with them, but I'm pretty simple with lighting. Like I have a key light here, does most of the work, and I have another light behind me over here.
Yeah. See, you need like the tube light behind you. That's, you know, that's
I need like the
YouTuber.
2-color, you know, like I usually don't take the standard path. I'm just like, let's keep this simple. But they're cool, man. I would love to play with them. I just don't have any experience.
Yeah, they're really good. Yeah, like I said, because there's such a large light source, so they generally come out quite soft. But you can use them for almost anything and everything. It's great. Thermal pad. What's that? Have you heard of a thermal pad hack by Max? That sounds like a heat distribution thing. That would be interesting if they did have something like that for the A7IV. But cameras shouldn't overheat anyway. You want them to work, and they should always work. A7 III is my future wish camera. Yeah, so a lot of people still, roll with APS-C cameras, or some people don't even have cameras. So we are quite lucky and blessed to, have owned these kind of cameras. But hopefully one day work as hard as you can, just save up for it. Absolutely. Josh, this one's for you.
Oh, yes. Yes, Johnny, definitely have it on set up high. It's funny. I made a bunch of videos on A7 IV on my channel, and half of them I was like, okay, before you do anything, make sure it's set on high. So yes, that's like the first thing you got to do. I heard people didn't know that, and their camera overheated while they're just going through the menus setting up their camera. I was like, what? So yeah, definitely have that on high.
Crazy, hey. Here's one for you.
C70. Dude, I love the C70. The image can't be beat for under 10 grand, hands down. That camera's got magic going on, the DGO sensor, but autofocus, man, that's my weakness, is the autofocus.
Have you seen Andrew's channel?
Yeah, I've seen some of Andrew's videos.
He threw on, what was it, the Atlas Orion anamorphic lenses, and because it's Super 35, it ended up being super thin and long, the craziest aspect ratio. Obviously, you have to crop in to put it to a normal aspect ratio, but yeah, that's insane. Oh, is that a donation, or did you just put that there? If it is,
it's hard to tell when you're in your streaming software. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I think Andrew streams with the R6 is what he generally, streams with. I don't know if he streams with the C70. That's interesting. Yes, it is.
Selling gear tonight, Jason.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Should I turn this live into a gear selling?
Anybody wants my A7 IV that overheats, send me a message. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I need it right now. I can't buy another camera.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yep, there you go. Absolutely, Doc Rock. 2014, yeah, that's right. It's such an old camera, but I actually gave it to my missus, and she's been using it for photography, so she's just started, which is a great beginner's camera. I mean, any camera in the APS-C line is a great beginner's camera, that's for sure. Ren said, how do you shoot in S-Log while vlogging? Well, pretty much like what Josh was saying, there's so many LUTs you can literally just slap on if exposed correctly, and S-Log is perfectly fine. In terms of exposure. See, I did a full video on multimetering. The tough thing about multimetering is it kind of guesses what's exposed. It doesn't worry about highlights too much, doesn't worry about shadows too much. I did a full video about using false color, and because you can spot the exact exposure in each particular spot in your scene, whereas multimetering, it's kind of like that average of exposure, and it's the whole 1.7 to 2 stops is kind of like a general idea. A lot of the times I'll throw my my zebras onto 100%, and if nothing is clipped, I am good. Let's preserve the highlights, especially with the A7 IV. If you preserve the highlights, you've got so much detail in the shadows, you're sweet. There won't be much grain. But
yes, I'm guessing we're talking about S-Log 3 here, I guess. But yeah, it's, a lot of people come out and said, 1.7-ish. I always try to aim 1.3 to 1.7. Some people say you don't need to overexpose at all. We're talking about exposing to the right? Overexposing the camera a little bit. And I think when I'm vlogging, I don't like run around with a camera like a normal vlogger will. Like I'll be outside, I'll be on a tripod, or I'll do certain shots. Like I'm not just like running through the streets and filming myself. Like that's not my style. So I don't need those auto modes. But what I'll do is I'll usually set it somewhere in there, 1.3 to 1.7 over, and then just look at the image. You know, like you could be in a situation where the multimetering and face priority or whatever it's called is reading the right exposure, but like your face is completely dark because the sun's behind you and you're backlit, or it's a super bright situation. So it's a good place to start, but then just actually look at the image, and also make sure you turn view assist on in your Sony camera so it gives you a little bit more color, contrast and saturation. Because judging the log like straight in the camera is really hard, and these Sony screens are garbage. So I'll keep saying it, like they're garbage, like they're terrible. So really, if you're shooting, you know, professional video, like Jason was saying, using a monitor with false color or using zebras in the camera is also a great tool. But if you're vlogging, you're more run and gun. You don't have time to like necessarily do that. So I probably wouldn't. If you're the thing about an S-Log, I would probably lock the ISO and let the aperture change. That's what I'd probably do. Because the whole thing with S-Log is you want to shoot at the base ISO to get the most dynamic range. Because once you start shifting off of that, you start losing dynamic range. So that's what I'd probably recommend. Sorry, we spent a lot of time on that question.
No, it's a good question to have as well, because a lot of people are just told, you know, expose 1.7 to 2 stops over. And it's just a general thing that a lot of people say, but no one really breaks down.
I think 2 is pretty extreme. I don't think I'd need to go 2 over.
Yeah. Because I've seen actually some people will put 2, but it's flashing, and flashing means it's over 2.
It's over 2. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think some people know that. And definitely flashing is not a good thing. Actually, if it says -2 and it's flashing, you've got a problem.
Look at the
not
screen.
Good.
Look at the screen.
Yes. Bobby Prats is saying, I was planning to buy a Pro Mist filter. Which do you think is better, 1/4 or the 1/8? Shooting like baking or cooking classes. That's interesting. So I use the 1/8. I feel like 1/4 is too much. I've used it on one job before, and it literally looked like the person was just a ghost. It was it was crazy, especially like if the sun hit in that right spot. It was like, do you have Bold and the Beautiful over there, TV show?
I don't really watch TV.
Is that a thing? Oh, it's like a soap opera, and it was just like,
it looks like dreamy,
soft and dreamy. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. In terms of baking and cooking, though, like that's hard. I don't really shoot any sort of cooking stuff, but there would obviously be a lot of harsh lights and reflections, and it could look cool. But I would personally suggest an 1/8. What do you think?
So I don't really use mist filters. I've experimented with them a little bit. I usually like a crispier image. So I don't know, but I would definitely start with an 1/8. I tried 1/4. It was like, it was too much. It was just like, unless you're going for that look, like it's something you're trying to bake into the image, I'd probably go with an 1/8 if you want to try it, for sure.
Here's one for you, Josh.
Oh, what do you guys use for audio when it comes to run and gun or interview type setups? Cool. Well, Jason, I did this in your video, right?
Yep.
I can't show you. So I use the FX3, and I will have the top handle on it, and I'll use, I don't have any gear around me. The Sennheiser AVX wireless, which is like an XLR. It's like an XLR, plugs right into the XLR. That's my go-to for a lav setup. And then I'll use a shotgun microphone on the FX3. I've been using the NTG5 lately. It is super neutral and like super like crispy. It's very flat. Frequency response is very natural sounding. It's also like very light and very small, which I like. Like I was thinking about getting like the Sennheiser, the MKH416 or something like that. But when you're having it on a small camera like the FX3 or even the FX6, I like that for run and gun. So I usually run those 2 audio devices if I'm recording somebody. And a lot of times when I'm doing stuff, sometimes I talk in my own videos. So I'll run a third microphone into the 3.5. That's why the FX3 is, I mean, again, I should have put some gear around me.
I just ran over and grabbed it.
I have to say, though, that microphone, is that the Pro or the Pro Plus?
The Pro Plus.
Yeah, so I have the Pro Plus, and I still use it every week. That is the microphone that I do a lot of stuff with when I'm vlogging and stuff. And the thing about that, which is great, is it doesn't sound that bad from the back. So a lot of mics with their way they pick up noise, like if you're like interviewing someone and you want to talk in the vlog too, like it picks up pretty well from the back. But yeah, that microphone still, and that's an old microphone. I love the sound of it, at least my voice.
Still great, yeah. It's really bassy too, really bassy.
That's why I like it. Yeah.
This is kind of what I use as well. It's pretty much like the Rode Wireless Go, but it's the Synco's version. Perfectly fine if you just do a lav mic clip up. But in terms of interviews, it really depends on style as well. If you want the lav mic showing,
Exactly.
But yeah, booming's always
right. He's saying run and
the
gun.
greatest.
So for me, like I used to just use a shotgun mic, but then I'd lose audio or get too loud or too windy or something, and so I started doing both, and then I have a backup and just pick whichever one sounds better.
Doc Rock said, Sydney, do you watch Sydney stuff? I do. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Shoot and crop on the A7 IV. Yeah, mainly for the fact that even if you shoot crop, it's still a 4.6.
4.6. Yep.
Yeah, which is still just as sharp or the same as the A7S III, really. But I think you lose a little bit of dynamic range. I think.
You get more noise.
Yeah. There we go. That's what I was talking about. Booth
Curtis
Junkie.
Judd is the man. Yeah, and Curtis Judd. Go check out his channel. Curtis is the man.
There you go. Man, that comment was from 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, we're
really
struggling
need to
here. That's sorry, man. There's few of us answering questions in here.
Yeah. All right. How about you answer this one, and I'm going to sift through some of the comments.
Let's see. Proxies are mostly useful when you're using highly compressed codecs. So yeah, basically anything heavy hitting like 4K 10:4:2. Yeah, that's definitely true. And anything in the H.265 format is going to be harder on your computer. But what I've noticed is any of the M1 Macs, if you guys are in that world, even the Mac Minis, they can handle any of that footage like no problem. The only thing I find they struggle with is drone footage. But I feel like every computer struggles with stuff coming out of the DJI drones. But otherwise, like, yeah, any of the M1 Max I switched to has been fine for me, editing that stuff. Or get another comment from David.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's what we were just talking about before, the A7S III as photography. Yeah. 20 minutes ago. It's incredible, though. I love seeing, people using the A7S III for photos as well, because it absolutely can be done. It's just, the stigma around having the R series and you need the resolution. It's just not really the case with
file
most
sizes, man. Oh my, like
I couldn't imagine.
No,
crazy.
I mean, when I had the R5 and I just take a thumbnail, I'm like, it's 100 megabytes for like one photo. Like, I don't need that.
Oh my God. And imagine, weddings, you take thousands, 3,000 photos. It's crazy. Yeah, there you go. So even with his prints, that's phenomenal. That's great to see. The quality. I think, did you watch, who was it? Chris Howe, his video, and he showed the prints from the Fuji, the 100 megapixel compared to the A7S III.
I didn't watch that video, but I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
Oh my God. And people, like, he had Peter McKinnon, he had other people on there. I can't even remember who else was on there, but they couldn't see the difference. I was like, my God, what? I still don't understand. There's some trickery going on there. Danny Tran. Oh, there you go. Another one for you, Josh.
Okay, let's see. When overheated for the live streams recordings, USB output, or are you outputting? I was outputting HDMI. Yep. It was going into my Ninja V for just monitoring, and then into my computer using a Cam Link. Yeah, that's probably true. It's a very light camera. I mean, when you put a G Master lens on it, it gets pretty beefy. But yeah, it's very light in your hands. That's something I do really like about the FX3 is that it is heavier and it feels more solid when you hold it, and I actually really like that, like the camera having a little bit more weight to it.
Yeah, that's why I pretty much run a cage on mine the whole time. I just prefer the thicker body and weight. I don't know why Sony keeps making their cameras smaller and smaller and smaller each time. It's crazy.
Yeah, they kind of stopped, I guess. But like, yeah, there was this whole thing with mirrorless when they started with mirrorless, because they started it and they were like, we're gonna make these cameras super tiny. It's like, I can't work the thing. Like it's too small, you know?
4:1 aspect ratio. So that was with the anamorphic lens on there. It's crazy wide. It's may as well release a film like that. That'd be great. No idea what hashtag means. What kind of photo do you prefer? But let's move on to the next one. I use the A7C for photos. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, you got both. A7S III as well. That's cool. Doc Rock. Okay. I finally hit the last amount of questions.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe our pace was fine then. We were just now we're like, all right, we're rushing through this.
Yeah. Richard B just posted something there. Has anyone had A7IV issues with not powering on every time? That's interesting. I've never. Have you?
No. I just told you my only beef with that camera is the overheating, and otherwise I love it for every other reason.
Yeah. I don't think I've had that issue with any camera, to be honest. And if you do, yeah, maybe contact Sony with that one. That's an interesting one. Let's. How much time you got?
I'm good for whatever, man.
Yeah, so we'll go another 20-ish minutes. Keep it around an hour and a half, 90 minutes. That seems about good. But let's talk about why you're wanting to, because you're considering the FX6, right?
Yeah, I'd buy one if I could find one right now. I did own that camera last year, and it was just not the right camera for me at the time. And there is that thing that just because you may be able to afford a really nice camera, it doesn't mean it's the right camera for you for what you need it for. And I had that realization with that camera. Was like, I don't need this camera. Like, this is too much for me. So I sold it and went to, at the time, I think I had 2 FX3s. And that was like a dream combination. It was like, it was great. But I would like an FX6 because I'm generally like either filming myself and it's really simple, or I'm behind the camera and I have the ability to have a larger camera. And so ND filters, if anyone has never used the variable ND in an FX6 or an FX9, it'll change your life. Like it is, and for me, this is something I don't hear people talk about a lot, Jason, is that like when you're using a screw-on VND like I do every day, right? You can adjust it any bit from 2 to 5, right? But when you're using cameras like the Canons, like the C70, it's hard stops 2, 4, 6, 8, and you can't switch them while you're rolling because you'll see the thing like switch in front of the. But on the Sony, the FX6, you can literally just set your, if you're ISO or if you're in CEI, it's already set at your base ISO, and you can set your aperture and obviously your shutter speed locked in. All you have to do is sit there and just move that little dial on the side of the camera, and it's no color shift,
handy.
You can even do an auto feature with it. So yeah, that in itself is worth a lot to me. And also now I'm pretty much only using XLR microphones. Before I was kind of using both, and now like if I'm out on a shoot, like I'm gonna use an XLR mic for everything. So because there is no 3.5 even on the handle on that camera, right? On the FX6.
Yeah, that's dumbfounded me.
They made some mistakes with the audio on that camera for sure.
Which is weird because the FS5, the previous generation, had one XLR on the body and one on the handle. So it's like, I wonder what the reasoning was. Why did they do that? It's an interesting one.
Yeah, it would have been nice if they left one on the body for sure. Now there's just no option. So, but yeah,
unless it was a thing to do with they wanted to keep it really square and boxy.
Yeah, I don't know. But either way, yeah, if I could find one, I'd probably buy one right now. There's something I know there's two schools of thought when you compare it. Like people talk about the FX6 versus the FX3 and A7S III. Some people say same camera, same image, same sensor, whatever. But there's a subtle difference, and it's a little bit different in terms of the colors, very different. But the big thing for me is being able to turn off noise reduction. And when I first bought the camera, I didn't really appreciate that one feature in that camera. But when I go back and look at the footage I shot with it, when I had that camera, like it looks different. It looks more filmic. It looks less like people's skin look a little bit less plasticky. Again, these are like the subtle things you notice when you're staring at a computer and you're over analyzing the image and being a total nerd about it versus like you send it off to a client and they're like, oh, cool, it looks good, it's sharp, it's in focus. But like when you're really trying to like get really nerdy about it, those are the things that I noticed about the cameras.
Yeah, I think specifically the second base is when the A7S III just applies crazy amounts of noise reduction, and it kind of, like you're saying, it's a bit plasticky, it's not as sharp, and it's a bit too smooth. Whereas, yeah, the FX6, you're able to change that, which is really cool. Yeah, going on the FX3, one of the biggest reasons why I bought it was autofocus. Mainly for the fact that, you know, you do have that option to use manual. Obviously, you just put into manual focus. But if you want fast autofocus in run and gun situations, you have it. Whereas if you went like the Red Komodo, for instance, fabulous camera, but no real proper autofocus. And I think there was a question I had ages ago. Is one guy's like, well, you spent, 10,000 Aussie on an FX6, why didn't you get the Komodo? I was like, well, that's pretty much the main reason why. And thousands and thousands of dollars of lenses that I have as well. That's a big one. You spend all this money on G Master lenses because you've got a few G Master lenses, right?
I do, yeah. And the Komodo is a great example because I think for the money, if you look at, because the Komodo and the FX6 are the same price just for the camera. They're $6,000 in the States. Yep. So yes, the Komodo will produce, in my opinion, a better image, and they have global shutter and all that stuff. But like when you think about what you need to do to get the Komodo up and running, like it doesn't come with a screen. It doesn't there's a lot of things that it doesn't have like any XLR inputs. You have to have another audio solution for it. Like there's a lot of things to build up the Komodo, and it doesn't take a lot. Like a few thousand will get you there. But if you're more of a run and gun shooter, and if you're shooting narrative work or you're doing stuff where it's a lot more planned out, I think the Komodo is a great option. And my buddy Tyler Edwards has one. He absolutely loves it. But like, even though I could buy a Komodo, like it's not the right camera for me. Like I need eye autofocus and those kinds of things. So for me,
Absolutely.
A lot of times like people talk about the image and maybe it's just people just watching YouTube videos and stuff, but how you actually use the camera is just as important because I don't care what the image is like. If the shot's out of focus, like I'm not gonna be able to use the shot. So,
yeah, definitely. Yeah, Andrew was saying this all the time.
It's a big difference, Andrew. I agree, man.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's just dialing in that perfect exposure is the best thing. Like
you were asking
said,
about lenses. Did you want to? Yeah. Sorry. Did you want me to answer that too? Or do you want to? You got other questions in there?
I don't know. What were we talking about?
You were like, oh, you have some G Master lenses. Yeah, I have a couple lenses. I have.
Oh yeah.
I'm a big zoom guy. I don't really get too nerdy about depth of field, so I have the 16 to 35 G Master, which pretty much lives on my camera for shooting myself, and then the 24 to 70, which I shoot everyone else if I'm behind the camera. I have the 24 for this basically. I also have the 70 to 200 f4, so I have everything covered.
Going on the 16 to 35 GM, do you use the 16 much? The wide?
No. I 20 is my favorite. I've considered getting the 21.8 because generally when I'm shooting myself, I'm 20. Like that's where I like it. The only time I'll put it to 16 is if I have to do something handheld and I need to film myself, which is very rarely because if I'm putting in active stabilization with focus breathing compensation, it punches in quite a bit. That's literally the only time I'll use 16 because I think after you get past 20, you get too much distortion for my own preference. So I don't use 16 very much.
Yeah, that's a great question by Renz too, because we're both shooting on the 24 right now.
Yeah.
But we're just talking about the 20. Like the 20 is like just that good point, right?
I really want to buy that lens, but it's like... like a 24 versus a 20. But I thought about it like if you are like, let's say you're vlogging or you're just doing content where you're out and about and you're filming yourself, like it's just this lens is really big and heavy. Like this is a big lens, you know. The 21.8's like, you know, a little guy, and you get 1.8 if you need it. But
is it the same size as the 24? It's slightly smaller.
I bet you it's smaller. It's probably lighter too. Although the 24 is pretty small.
Wow, yeah, 24 is small. Yeah, it's a great size. Hey,
I want to buy the 20, but I just can't justify it.
Yeah, for an extra 4 millimeters.
I don't like the 20. I don't like 24 though. Like I like 20. That's like my favorite because I don't like standing right up on the camera, and I can get pretty close, still see a lot of the background, and be close enough to use like a on-camera mic. So 20 is like perfect for me.
Have you used the Ronin 85? I haven't.
I haven't either.
No, I've used the Viltrox 85. You know, it's kind of not as good as the Sony versions. In terms of the 85, we're just talking about the 85 GM. Like it's an expensive lens. It's a big, hefty lens too. And realistically, the 85 f1.8 by Sony is better value. It's sharper at f1.8. It's faster autofocus.
Smaller,
it's
lighter.
It's a fabulous lens. Smaller, lighter, exactly, yeah. Which we're talking about before, yeah. Hopefully they'll bring out the Sony 1.2. But
it'd probably be over
$2,000
though.
Yeah, and how big would it be too?
It'd
because
be
that's a big lens, and
yeah.
Because the 135 is pretty big as well, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit of a killer. You couldn't. Oh, you could probably run that on a gimbal.
All those big fast primes are heavy. Like think about Canon's, like they're 51.2, they're 85. They're massive lenses.
Yeah. You're right. Let's keep going through. We got a few more questions. Oh, okay, there you go. It's an interesting one. Oh, there you go,
Chris.
You know Chris?
He comments on a lot of stuff. I don't know Chris, but
oh, cool. Yeah. There you go.
I appreciate it. No 3D printing, man. I got too much going on.
Just Chris said, two things with the FX6 and FX9 that changed my life on a daily basis. Yeah, electronic ND is just crazy good. Ability to override autofocus.
Yeah, do you use that feature?
No, because I've got my hand on the lens most of the time, and that autofocus, manual focus switch is right there. So I generally just flick it and then adjust. With the 28 to 135 lens, it had, I don't know if you know, but it had like on the front, you click it down and then it goes into manual focus, and then you click it forward, goes, fabulous design. That was probably one of the best things about that lens because of the auto to manual focus.
The 90 macro has that too.
Oh, does it? Nice. Yeah, cool. That's got OSS as well.
Yeah, I thought about getting that instead of the 70 to 200 actually. But now I can, I got everything from 16 to 200, so with 3 lenses.
Just Chris, off topic, FX6 looking more cinematic. Super true. FX9 somehow looks even more cinematic for FR some reason. For some reason. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
You haven't shot the FX9 much, right?
I've got one mate that's got it, but I haven't really used it too much. He's a chef and he doesn't really use it himself. He uses his A7S III a lot. I don't actually know why he bought it. It's just it doesn't suit his workflow at all. But he's got one. So the FX9 and FX6 are like two worlds apart. They're completely different cameras and completely different sensors. It's kind of like comparing, I guess, in a way, the A7S III and the A7 IV, because you've got that downsampled sensor, or you've got that one-to-one readout sort of sensor. So they're two different cameras, really, for two different people. Well, it could be similar people.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Have you used the FX9 yourself?
I never touched one. I don't want to because I'll probably want it.
It,
Although you're saying the ergonomics are like just awkward because it's a much bigger camera.
it's big. It's because the FX6 is like it's like this, and the FX9's like this.
Yeah.
So it's really long and just it's heavy. It's not. Yeah,
The
it's
extra
not
feature. I don't need the
plasticky.
extra features in it, so I'd rather have a smaller camera.
Yeah, I think when they brought it out, it was really underwhelming too. But now with all the firmware updates, it's so much better than what it was.
Well, I think there was a lot of people who bought FX9s when the FX6 came out. They're upset because they're like, I just spent 11 grand on this camera, and the FX6 basically kind of does what the other, like
Yeah, it actually did more because the FX9
doesn't do 4K 120.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people wanted that, which it is what it is. But you get a obviously really high oversampled image. Exactly right. Yeah, another 24 f1.4.
Hanging out with Jared. There you go. Nice.
That's got to be like the most highly sold lens, surely.
It's great.
AJ Cole's Core. Is it AJ Core? Yeah, it is too. 20 is so sharp. Yeah, so a lot of the new Sony GM lenses are going to be completely sharp. They just, because it's GM, they want it to be like up there. So you pretty much can't go wrong with the, I'd say that you pretty much can't go wrong with the G Master until you pick up the 85.
Yeah, that is an older lens too.
Yeah, I love it still. Even with video, it's like sometimes with video, if it's not too sharp, you can't really tell. But photos, it's definitely noticeable, unfortunately. How can I get clients as an audio-visual producer? Interesting. As in audio-visual producer, I'm trying to like decipher the question here.
I think just how to get work as a videographer, or how to work as a professional. Like, how do you get clients? That's
and as a producer, that's interesting because obviously producing is a whole different world to shooting.
Yeah.
It's a lot of organizational work. It's being on top of things. It's having amazing people skills. I would say literally get yourself out there and just talk to people, make a lot of contacts, and yeah, that's probably your best way about it. I'm not a producer, so
try to take jobs as assistants and try to get to know people, get some experience, talk to everyone on set, get your foot in the door however you can, and just network. It's like anything in life, really, but yeah.
Yeah. It's a good question. It stumped me. Batis 85. Yeah, I've also used that, and that's a good lens. That's a hefty lens as well. It's massive. But it's old. A lot of the Batis lenses are getting pretty old now. I'll let you take this one, Josh.
I haven't used most of those lenses. I've been pretty impressed with Sigma glass across the board, like every Sigma lens I've ever used. I did have the Tamron 70 to 180 for a little while. So it was great. Like it was a super clean lens. I don't think I've used any Rokinon glass, so I don't really have an opinion on it, but Sigma in general, like you're not going to go wrong with any Sigma lens for the most part. Any of the modern lenses, they're very, very sharp.
Yeah.
But it's
the only,
they definitely have a look to them though. They have a look to them. They're different. So it's a personal preference thing.
The thing with Tamron glass, I've noticed it comparing it to the G Master ones, is even if it's the same f-stop, the bokeh is a bit more distracting on the Tamron. It's not as smooth. So that's one of the biggest reasons why, G Master is great, because they focus on that, focus on that out of focus quality.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I've got the Sigma 16 and 30 mil for APS-C, and they're fabulous lenses. I haven't got any Sigma full frame, so it's Rokinon. I've used the Rokinon. Have you heard of the Zine lenses? I've used the Zine lenses before. They were not as good as I was expecting them to be. Apparently, they're just the rehoused manual focus lenses, autofocus lenses, sorry.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. But in terms of manual focus lenses, I use the I don't know if you've seen the Makey lenses, the manual focus ones that I've got.
You like those?
Oh, amazing. They're amazing.
They seem like good value. They're not that expensive.
Yeah, very cheap and they're very sharp, which I guess a lot of cinematographers don't like, tack sharp images. So
back to Pro Mists again.
Yeah, exactly. Throw a Pro Mist on front. Richard B says, been shooting demonstrations and street content in London since Wednesday and only brought 2 lenses. Yeah, that's interesting. So he found himself using the 90mm for 3 days straight. I guess that obviously the 90mm has OSS, but it's also a f2.8. And I believe the 90 is sharper as well. Because I've done tests of the 24 to 105 and it's sharp in the middle, but it's really soft on the outsides most of the time.
Okay. And then probably when you get out towards the edges of the focal range, it probably doesn't perform as well either, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Especially 24mm is actually quite soft, like crazy soft. Yeah. That's on the edges. In the center, it's nice.
Yeah. The 90 is supposed to be a very sharp lens. I've never used it.
Yeah. I'm keen to get my hands on one of those, to be honest. But it's a really old lens too, isn't it?
It is. So again, you might have slower autofocus speeds, but if he's out there and he's shooting on the longer end of the 105, then just throw the 90 on there for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of gym. Yes. When I shoot for long periods of time, I have my easy rig anyway, so don't let this fool you. It's all show, no go. So Chris is like,
okay.
Yeah, okay. The 16 to 50 f2.8. I've never used that lens. Have you?
No, I just said every Sigma lens I've ever used has been awesome. Like I've had no complaints about their lenses.
Yeah. Especially if they're offering, quite affordable ones compared to Sony. Actually, Sony don't even have many APS-C zooms at f2.8. Do they even have one? I don't even know, to be honest.
I don't know. Now that I think about it, there are a lot of f4s, I think, or variable aperture.
We got the Swole Squad.
Oh boy, there you go.
It's actually Tight Shirt Terry.
Yeah, Tight Shirt Terry.
Yeah, I still haven't had a collab with them. Hopefully one day. Here we go. There you go. That's an interesting one by Doc Rock. Wrangling personalities. It is so very, very, very true. Yeah, because with producing, you're literally doing a lot of the back end work and organizing where people need to be, what times things need to be at. It's crazy because a lot of the commercial work that I do, I have to handle the producing stuff as well. And man, I hate it. It's terrible.
It's stressful.
Yeah. Hate's a very strong word. I dislike producing.
Oh, someone did comment the 16 to 55 is a 2.8. That is an APS-C lens. Yeah. Thank you for chiming in
there you go.
Yeah, I forgot about that lens. That's an expensive lens.
I've never used it. Wait, it's a G lens as well, I think.
Yeah.
Which is weird. They don't have any G Master lenses in APS-C. Sense. Yeah, I guess.
There's no Canon L glass for crop sensor as well, I guess.
Oh, right. Okay. I'm not a Canon boy, so I can't comment there.
I'm not anymore, but I don't know, man. I'm not gonna hate on anyone for using anything. There's a lot of things I love about Canon, but they're making themselves hard to buy their cameras right now if you're into video. That's all I have to say about it.
Thoughts on the R5C?
Oh yeah, we can talk about that, man. I can talk about that forever. I made several videos about it. It's interesting because I think it's a little late for that camera. I think when the R5 came out, everyone's like, just put a fan on it, we'll be good. And then they waited a year and a half later, and they took out IBIS, which bothered a lot of people. But I don't think that's what really bothered me so much. They kept a micro HDMI jack in that, which is insane. No XLR
I don't
inputs.
understand that.
You have to add another unit, which they don't even make. Tascam makes it. I think the biggest thing for me was no C-Log 2. And I guess the sensor can't handle, it doesn't have that much dynamic range. But like there is a big difference between C-Log 2 and C-Log 3. And if you guys don't know, C-Log 2 is the highest dynamic range, which is similar to like S-Log 3 in Sony. So it's kind of backwards. So yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. I mean, if you need 8K and not overheating, like there's nothing else that does that right now, especially for that price point. You know, for me and my uses, you know, I don't need that camera, and I don't need an R5 for photography. Like that's the thing, is like the R5 is a killer photography camera. So I don't know.
That's
you put
interesting.
All that, yeah, you put all that together. I think one thing that I think is super cool, which I think they didn't need to do, but they have 2 operating systems in that camera, and I think this is a piece of tech that I love and hope Sony picks up, because I would love the FX6 operating system in the FX3. Like I would like all the stuff that's in there, shutter angle, waveform, that face only mode for autofocus, like all that stuff. If I could have that in the FX3, then the FX3 would be pretty much perfect, minus the ND filter.
That is one thing that confused me with the FX3, why it didn't have shutter angle, because that's amazing to set just the angle and not worry if you're changing in between.
Yep.
It's such a lifesaver sometimes. Because even with the A7 IV, sometimes when I'm going in between 50 and 25, I leave my shutter at 1/50th. I'm like, no, killer.
Yeah,
just
so
set it to 180.
There's definitely a lot of things in the R5C that I'm excited that Canon did, but it also just didn't really make sense in a lot of ways.
Yeah. What do you think that's going to do to sales of the C70 with the R5C?
So no C-Log 2 is that's a deal breaker for me. And I think the C70, it's really comparing like apples and oranges, because C70 is Super 35, R5 is full frame. C70 doesn't do 8K, but the R5 does. If you need 8K, to me, there's a magic sauce that's in that DGO, the dual gain output sensor, that is just incredible. I know I said that earlier, and Andrew, he knows, and you've seen image, you know, Andrew's still watching, but you've seen images out of it. So it's a different look. The R5's an oversampled image. They no longer have that line skipped or pixel bin mode in 4K. You only have that HQ mode. And I have to say, because I did own the R5, like that image is amazing. Like that 4K HQ mode. But it lacks dynamic range. Like I'd be out shooting and I have to decide, do I want to keep the shadows or the highlights? And like when I shoot in S-Log 3, I don't have to stress about that. So I don't know. I don't think they're going to sell a lot of them, but I think if you're in the Canon ecosystem and you really want that specific camera, it's for a very small niche. It's a confusing camera.
Yeah. I think the lack of internal NDs as well is
like they took out IBIS, like put in NDs, you know.
Yeah, that blew my mind. But their reasoning is because, same again, filmmakers don't need IBIS, and they use, you know, other things.
I think that's the rationale they gave, but I think the real reason is it was to save money and to save heat.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with that one. Yeah, which they should, like, I don't know. A lot of people were saying they wanted to lock the IBIS if they didn't want to use, you know, the IBIS, which is fabulous. If you have the best of both worlds, then why not? But
this is
like
why I can't deal with Canon anymore, because every time you talking about one of the cameras or you have one of them, and there's always like a workaround. There's always like, oh, but I'll just do this. I'll just give it to me. Just put it in the camera. That's kind of how I feel. Micro HDMI. Like, you got to be kidding me.
That baffled me. I actually got into a discussion. Where was it? I think it was the 1DX Mark III has a micro HDMI as well.
Yep.
And I was like, you know, battling with someone in the comments. I'm like, absolutely, there's room for a full size HDMI. I don't understand. Like Sony Alpha cameras, exactly. It's such a small camera. You know? Yeah. And someone was trying to tell me there's not enough room. I'm like, you are kidding me. You got to be like that. The 1DX is
or the R3 or even the R3.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It confuses me because a lot of people, especially with the R5C, it's meant to be, you know, the cinema camera. It should have a full-size HDMI, but I guess the C70 doesn't have a full-size HDMI as well, which
it does.
It doesn't. Yeah, they've
The
got
C70 has
a
no, it has small XLR inputs, but it has a full size HDMI.
oh, it does have full size. Okay.
Oh yeah.
I'll take that one back.
Yep,
Which,
definitely.
that's weird too. Like, come on, fit a full size HDMI.
Those didn't bother
full-size-
me, man. Those did not bother
Yeah.
me. Yeah, owning that camera. That was not what bothered me about that camera.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, see, like what Ben's saying here. nice name. That's probably not his name, or maybe it's his name. But yeah,
Maybe he definitely goes by Benjamin.
yeah, yeah. So camera makers sometimes, but see, you know, with Canon as well, they got to protect their cinema cameras, like the C500.
I hate that argument. I just hate it. Like,
yeah, it does suck. Yeah.
and most
that's for
people
sure.
are shooting on mirrorless cameras now. Like a lot of people are because they're so powerful. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep. And that's
I don't like that argument. It's like, oh, you don't like my $4,000 camera? You have to buy our $12,000 camera? Like, stop it. Like, that's not.
I think that's the great thing about Sony. In some aspects, is that a lot of the image quality is still fabulous in the cheaper cameras. You don't have to get a cinema camera to get, you know, cinema quality. Like the A7S III is
So similar
quite
to
cheap
FX6.
these days. Yeah, exactly. You could literally make a whole movie on the A7S IIIs. Absolutely, you could.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like what we were saying before, they just. Have you got experience with Magic Lantern? I've heard it's like incredible.
This was big before I was into any of this stuff. So like hacking the
Can it be
5D
done
Mark
with the
II,
newer cameras?
5D Mark III. I don't know, but I mean, what are you trying to get out of these cameras that they don't have? You can't Magic Lantern full size HDMI port or ND filters. If they could keep my A7 IV from overheating, that would be great. But
hey, they'll probably come out with a firmware update. You never know, and then A7
well, a lot of it
IV
was
will
getting
be sweet.
different codecs and stuff out of the camera, and like they just had that update. It's either coming out soon or did come out for the C70 to have RAW now, which was I thought was crazy because now it's like, why would you buy the C300 Mark III? But I don't know. I'm not thinking about those cameras as much anymore.
Yeah, Andrew just bought. I think it was like the V90 cards, the 258 gig, because he's preparing to record RAW in his C70.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy that camera's gonna be able to do that internally. So that's great.
Yeah. Have you recorded RAW in your FX6, FX3?
I have to do that externally, right?
Yeah.
I have not. I don't know why I would need to. I don't
like it, to be honest. There's no real benefit. Like in terms of image quality, it's like 1% better, if that.
And it's not real RAW anyways. It's ProRes, right?
Exactly.
So you can't like go in and change the ISO, or you can't like, it's not like you're shooting on red or anything. So
no, I think one of the main benefits is white balance, which
you can change the white balance.
Yeah, I think it's only in DaVinci.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing you can't do. It's not Premiere Pro approved, or unless it is now. This was
I'm not sure. Yeah, I haven't played with it. I'm like, I keep things small, so I don't want to carry around a recorder or anything, and I find the 10-bit 422 4K image out of any of these cameras is just like plenty for me.
Yeah, it's going from like 8-bit to 10-bit's massive, but
Huge.
10-bit to 12-bit, it's not as noticeable.
Yeah, I noticed when I got the A7S III, because I had an A7 III at the time, and I started shooting the A7S III, I was like, this is a huge jump in image quality. Like the colors, just the way they reproduce the image, like it's a big difference for sure.
Yeah. I did a video, it was just an Instagram reel on the A7 III because I was holding the A7 IV, and there was just one shot that I could not color grade and fix because there just wasn't enough information there for me to fix the skin tone. So it looked horrible. It was terrible, but the video performed nice. But in my mind, I'm like, oh, this looks like shit.
So are you still Are you still using your A7 III, or is it kind of just like a backup for you? You still use it?
Oh, it's a C cam.
Okay.
So if I'm ever filming a lot of BTS, that'll be my BTS cam as well. But yeah, I've actually started using S-Log 3 in it I always used to use HLG, but still you get better dynamic range in S-Log, but 8-bit
S-Log
codec
2 or 3?
sucks. S-Log 3.
Okay.
Yeah, it's it's a hell color grading sometimes, but then sometimes I'll throw my A7 IV LUT on and amazing. I'm like, great.
Okay.
Sweet.
Okay. I mean, I looked back at some footage that I had on the A7 III, and I'm pleasantly surprised. Like, I'll go back and watch some of the videos I shot on that. It looks, because it's oversampled, it's super sharp.
Yeah.
I think I was shooting HLG for most of the time. Maybe I was scared of log at the time, but
yeah.
Camera's
did you ever
awesome.
watch Cody Blue? Do you remember Cody Blue?
I haven't watched a lot of his stuff. I know you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, his older stuff when he was mainly doing camera stuff. Yeah, I don't think he does camera stuff anymore, but he was using the A7 III and just color grading it like it was a cinema camera. It was beautiful looking images, just insane. But yeah, sometimes it's just the way you shoot, the way the light is.
I think also, the longer you shoot with the camera, the more you can get used to it and learn its limitations, and then learn how to push the colors and how to expose it properly. And like myself, I keep trying different cameras. Like, I'm never like super dialed in with one camera. Yeah, you can definitely make a lot of images work for sure.
That's the great thing about, the cameras companies like fighting against each other, is that we're benefiting because we're always going to get better cameras, which, Canon, Sony, Nikon, you keep fighting each other and giving us the best of the best. So, Debbie Canale, good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. So the DJI Ronin 4D is insane. I haven't tried it, but I've seen so many videos, and I am very determined to get my hands on one. Have you even seen one? Have you touched one?
Me? No, dude. No. I don't even know anyone who would. I'd love to try it. I mean, it looks cool. It's like I was saying with Canon, even like in the R5C, like the new tech that they're putting out, everyone's gonna win. Like, the Ronin 4D was like, everyone's like, what is this? But like, now there's an idea of someone putting a gimbal in a camera, and it just shakes everything up. Like, I love people thinking outside the box for sure.
I am more impressed that DJI came out of absolutely nowhere with a full frame sensor, amazing dynamic range, and just pulled this camera out of nowhere. And I'm like, what is going? That's exciting. That's really cool.
I'm curious to see if people, after everyone sort of gets to try it, it gets passed around and get all these reviews, and I wonder if people actually start using it in their workflow, though. That's going to be my question.
Yeah.
Because I saw a lot of the reviews, and people were like, this is the coolest camera. I'm so excited to use it. And then they go back to using something else. So, like, that's what I'm curious about. In 6 months, is anyone going to be using the 4D? Even though it's super cool. Yeah. That's what I'm curious about.
Because the size as well. Like, it's not small, but it's not also that big. But,
there's a lot of intricacies. There's like the little controllers and all the things to plug in. Like, I feel like it probably isn't as durable. That's my guess.
Yeah. Doc Rock, thank you very much, my man. Mahalo means, thank you, does it? Or hello? That's Hawaiian, right?
Yeah, I guess I don't know that. I guess I could look it up just as easily. But
he said it was Hawaiian, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I lost my... I pulled it out. There we go.
Okay.
We're back.
All right.
Just Chris has got one. FX RAW is actually great when you aren't operating in low light environment, but highlight recovery difference is huge. Okay, that's interesting. I just haven't done it. Like, I can record RAW in the FX6, but I might have to do some tests to see if the highlight recovery is good, because I think it was Gerald Undone. He did a test with I think it was A7S III with RAW, and he just couldn't justify, like, there was barely anything noticeable. Yeah, I can't remember. I think it was A7S III back in the day. But yeah. So we were talking about Cody Blue before. He does like life stuff now and travels around with his wife, partner. Yeah. Which is interesting. YouTube's a bit of a long game, isn't it? It's a tough one.
Yeah, it's a whole other can of worms. But yeah, you think about how long you've been doing that. How long has this channel been going, Jason?
I think maybe 3.5 years.
Okay.
Which, yeah,
that's a long
feels
time.
like a lifetime.
I'm coming up to 3 years on my farming channel, and I just can't believe it. Like, I think it's in like a week or two. Like, I'll be up 3 years, and then you're like, do I still want to be doing the same thing? Can I change what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So that's like a whole other discussion.
That's the great thing about, I guess, camera channels is that cameras are always gonna, it's gonna be heaps of gear coming out. The technology is gonna keep changing, so it'll give us always something to talk about. Just Chris, brought out something interesting is that the Osmo X5. So that's the X5 was the I think he's talking about the Zen Muse from the drones. Yeah, I think it's what's that drone called? The Inspire. I think that's the sensor that was off the Inspire, which was a Super 35 sensor, I think. But yeah, I think this is their first full frame one anyway. But yeah, like you said, it'd be interesting to see if people stick with that camera for a while.
I think the lens options are limiting too. From what I saw was you could only kind of use their small little lenses. Like if you put any sort of bigger lenses on there, they're kind of too heavy to use it with the gimbal setup. So, and then if you're locking it off at that point, it's kind of like you're losing the big benefit of that camera.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, plenty of different meanings.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, cool. That's awesome. There you go. Here we go. Here's one. Richard and Gloria, sensor size and still/video quality. Yeah, so that's interesting because when it comes to sensor size and still quality, it really just depends on, I guess, resolution, depends on the lenses you're using. Yeah, that's a tough one. In terms of video quality, again, Super 35 sensors are still being used compared to full frame. So, yeah, but there's a lot of full frame cameras coming out now. So that seems to be the direction that a lot of companies are going in.
I think we're going to see more oversampled cameras moving forwards too, but I don't think we're quite there yet without putting a fan in them. And that was, again, the A7 IV. Yeah, I remember when that camera got announced, I made a video, like the day it got announced. I made a video that was like, what does this mean for Canon? And because I was shooting Canon at the time, and that's why I call it that. But that's been my biggest concern. I love the oversampled image, but how do you keep it from overheating? And I don't think we're there yet for, mirrorless cameras. But once we can start getting that under control, I think we're going to start seeing 8K cameras more and more often that have a 4K oversample. I think that's going to be more common versus the line skip that you get, or the pixel bin image that you get in like the A1, for example.
Yeah, which is really interesting because with like RE cameras, they only really just started making 4K cameras recently. They've just been perfecting their 2K sensors for forever. And here we are with these small mirrorless cameras trying to get 8K, slamming it into these smaller bodies. It's like, why not perfect that 4K like what the A7 IV is doing, downsample it to get a really crazy good 4K image. But yeah, it's interesting to see where they're going with that. What is your thoughts on the A7S III and the possibilities of the A7S IV? Do you think there's going to be one?
Lately I've been thinking no, because I think the future is going to be with more oversampling. I think there's always the crew that likes the softer filmic look with the lower megapixels. I mean, you look at most cinema cameras, like, you look at the Canons, they're like 7 megapixels or 8 megapixels, right? Like the C70 or C300. There is going to be that preference for sure. But I think once you start working with, and I think this is like between the two of us and some of the videos we've made, the A7 IV is like, yeah, like we want this look, like we're used to the look out of like the A7S III or the FX3, but then when you start shooting with the oversampled image, you're like, oh, there is more detail. Like I can soften it. I have more options. I think that we may not see it. I think the FX3 really messed things up too, because I think the FX3 came out and everyone was like, this is really what I wanted the A7S III to be for the most part. And so, like, where does that line go now? Like, do we see an FX3 Mark II? Like, what would the A7S IV have? But they went, what, 5 years between the Mark II and the Mark III? So I think it's going to be a while. I think there's a lot of things to get sorted. And they have a lot of cameras to push out before they get back to that camera.
Exactly, yeah. Well, I would, if there was an A7S III, you would expect it to be, you know, potentially an 8K sensor, because it's meant to be the video line, right?
Right, but I mean, here's my big thing about it though, is like everyone always says like, okay, lower megapixels is better in low light, and better in low light means you have less noise, right? That's essentially what you're trying to get. But like the A7 IV has less noise than the A7S III in almost every ISO other than 12,800 and 16,000. It's either the same or better. And I did a video about that too. So to me, I'm like, okay, well, that's debunked now. Like you can have a higher megapixel sensor and have less noise. So why have like less megapixels unless it doesn't overheat, you know?
Yep. Someone was trying to say it was just
rolling shutter,
noise
I
reduction.
guess, is another thing.
Someone was trying to say it was noise reduction, like is why the A7 IV. Yeah.
Oh, the A1 does the same thing though. I don't know. Maybe it's in that camera too.
I mean, if it is noise reduction, the skin isn't like crazy smooth. Like the detail's still there. It's
the detail's
pretty
better
good software then.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is like I don't care what the camera's doing. To me, like which image do you prefer? You know, that's what it comes down at the end of the day.
Yeah, and then obviously some people don't like that sharp image, like you're saying, and some people do. And I'm one of those people that do. I love the higher resolution. It obviously depends on what you're filming as well. I guess. We got one here. What actually overheats, the processor or the sensor? Yeah, that is interesting. I don't actually know. Does anyone know? I think it's the case that the processor is working so hard that it's producing the heat, and then the battery's producing heat because that's what batteries do.
And the memory card.
Yeah, the memory card, and just the camera is such a small body, the heat can't dissipate. So I guess your real question is the body overheats?
I mean, these are fairly sealed cameras too. So all the heat's sitting inside the body, and at some point the processor and all the electronics in there, it's like, okay, it's too hot to be operating, and it wants to shut down.
Absolutely, especially because they're meant to be weather sealed, so you kind of want them to be sealed, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is interesting. I think that the FX3 is a weather sealed body, right?
I from what I understand is that like the area where the air passes through the camera is actually outside of the body, is the way I understand. Yeah. Outside of where the electronics are.
Yeah. So they still call that passive cooling.
I believe so.
Yeah. Which you would imagine that's where it would go eventually with these camera bodies.
Yeah, I'm all about putting the fan in there. Like, just you don't have to think about it anymore.
Yeah. So this is going back to the X5 on the DJI thing. Yeah. Okay. So it's just talking about the X3, X5, and X7 sensors. Have you played with the DJI Osmo Pocket before?
I just have their drones, which I love, but I haven't tried the small cameras.
Because that would be interesting for them to bridge the gap between the Ronin 4D and the Osmo Pocket, and you have like a smaller handheld but a bigger, obviously, sensor. So that would be it'd be interesting for run and gun people.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, like their gimbal technology. I mean, not just their actual gimbals, but like the little ones they put in the drones and the action and the Ronin 4D. Like they have the best tech for that. Like. I want to see that in all. I want to see that stuff progress and be in more cameras.
What drone do you have?
The Air 2S.
Oh, yep, nice.
Started thinking about the 3, but I'm like, I don't need it.
It's too much. It's too much of a camera.
The Air 2S is awesome for the price. Like I get,
Yeah.
because it's got the same size sensor as the Mavic 2 Pro.
Yep.
It flies so easy. Like it is so easy to get good images with that camera and that drone. I highly recommend it for the price.
Chris actually brought up something I want to talk about, and
Cool.
that's the need of having global shutter. What are your thoughts on global shutter versus standard regular readouts, sensor readouts?
So I've never used a camera with global shutter, so I can't really speak from experience. But man, it would be cool.
Yeah.
But nowadays, like I think we're getting closer and closer to cameras that everyone keeps saying, when's the global shutter coming? Like, is the R1 going to have a global shutter? Is the next, new Sony camera, like when are we going to get a global shutter, like in a cinema camera or something? But I think they're kind of going the other direction where they're just making faster and faster sensors with stack sensors and all the stuff they can read out faster. And talking to, my friend Tyler, who owns a Komodo, he loves the global shutter for other reasons other than rolling shutter. He talks about like light flickering and stuff like that. But what the tech they put in the A7 IV, where you can change the shutter speed just slightly to avoid flickering. So I think there's a lot of ways around it. So I don't know I don't know which direction the tech's going to go, but to me it seems like Sony and Canon are kind of going not towards global shutter.
Yeah. With the A7S III and, that sensor and the FX6 is that the sensor readout's so fast anyway. It's so close to being global shutter. So if you are shooting, sports and wildlife, you're almost getting that similar performance. You're not going to get the slanty wobbling effects that you do with the A7 IV and stuff. But for regular narrative filming, you shouldn't really notice a difference between global shutter and a normal shutter system. I mean, I haven't, especially with my commercial work. There has been almost zero instances where I've needed a global shutter, except there was like a scooter commercial I had to do, and that's one thing I did luckily have the FX6 for. But global shutter is just, I think it's a YouTuber thing that sort of put it out there that you have to have global shutter. It's like this thing they've put on a pedestal right up there, but it does make a difference, especially, I don't know if you've seen a lot of vlogging videos with wider lenses and people throwing the cameras around. It does make a difference there, but hey, don't do that.
I don't get worked up about rolling shutter. Like I don't know, man. Like 98% of the people out there like don't have to worry about rolling shutter. So if you have a situation like you're saying, you're shooting fast moving things, wildlife, you're throwing the camera around, like maybe you need a global shutter. But for most of us, like we don't. Like don't worry about it.
Yeah, because that's one question I got a lot with the A7 IV, and I'll probably get maybe one every couple of days saying, "Oh, what about the rolling shutter on the A7 IV?" And I'm just like, show me a situation that this is going to affect you personally. I mean, if like I said, if you are a sports and wildlife videographer, then maybe. But in my personal use and a lot of other people's personal use, it won't really make a difference.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's what we're talking about. I think the Cine D, I don't if you've seen, obviously they're testing, the readout was like 8.7 milliseconds in terms of rolling shutter. It's like almost nothing. Whereas like, I think the C70 was 12 milliseconds. The A7 IV was like 25 milliseconds. So it was up there.
Yeah.
But the R6 was like 30 milliseconds. It was bad.
Oh, man. But again, these are hybrid cameras. Like, don't forget, this is not a video camera. This is a hybrid camera. So there's going to be sacrifices somewhere,
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's what we want anyway. We want higher resolution. Personally, I would choose that downsampled image over a global shutter, essentially.
Yeah, me too.
So I think the shutter speed caps out at 1/4000th of a second.
For photo. I never take pictures, so yeah.
Ah, okay. Yep. There
Okay,
you
that
go.
makes sense. I always
Yes.
think about global shutter. I think about for video. So
Ah, yeah. Same. Pretty much same. But yeah, what are your thoughts on Sony APS-C? Because they haven't released one since the A66 and A6100. Do you think they're dead?
this is a great question. Well, they had the ZVE10. Does that count?
Oh yeah, that's right. Not really,
But not really. I
Repackaged
think
A64.
I think there's a big gap right now, both Canon and Sony, but like the under $2,500 camera. There aren't any modern under $2,500 cameras, and I don't know if this is a trend. We could probably make a whole video about this, Jason. That like now with cell phones being as good as they are, like who's buying a camera? Like are parents buying cameras to take on vacation to go take photos of their kids? No, most of them are grabbing their iPhone. Like in reality, right? So like the cameras that they're producing, they know their market is the prosumer and pro level. So I'm really curious to see if they start putting out more affordable cameras. Like this is now the entry level camera at $2,500, the A7 IV. I don't know, but like, have they released an APS-C lens recently? Like that, all those lenses are pretty old. There's talk about
that's what you always got to look at. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, there's talk about like Canon coming out with an R7, I guess, like a APS-C mirrorless camera, but like, there's no lenses to support that. Like, you're not going to spend $2,000 on a full frame L lens to put on, your crop body. So, yeah, I would like to see it just because if they could, or come out with a full frame like there's talk about like a Canon $900 entry level full frame, like a Canon RP type, But like, there's got to be something in that $1,000 or less range for people to get into photography and videography, and I think that's where the APS-C line fits in. And, they just recycle the same sensors for eternity. So, like, just come up with a new one and then just have a bunch of spin-offs. But I think right now, especially with chip shortage and global supply, like, it seems like they put everything into their full-frame cameras. And, like, we're seeing that right now because I thought the A7 IV was going to be sold out within a matter of weeks. But you can still buy them right now. You can't buy any other camera. But anyways, long story short, I think I'm not sure. I'm not sure we're going to see it. I haven't heard anything about it. Like, I don't know, are people still shooting? I think if you're advancing from an older APS-C camera, you're probably going full frame. I don't know. What do you think, Jason?
Yeah. Well, I always loved the APS-C sensors, mainly for the fact that the image quality is so close to full frame that it's cheaper. Lenses are cheaper, the bodies are cheaper, everything is just cheaper. It's lighter. Put them on smaller gimbals, so you've got a smaller, lighter, cheaper setup for almost the exact same quality, if not, depending on how you use it, could be better in some circumstances. But in terms of them not releasing any lenses out, them recycling the sensor, it's like it doesn't really show signs that they're wanting to try and keep the APS-C line going. A lot of people are buying full frame because it's the newest and best thing, apparently. But if you are a beginner photographer, they're still selling the APS-C cameras out there in stores, so there's nothing stopping you from getting that. Sure, it doesn't have like the newest tech and stuff, except for the ZVE10 does have the newest autofocus system and all that kind of stuff, but doesn't have your 10-bit sensors. It's only got your 8-bit color, but I guess that's when you upgrade to the full frame cameras. I've always wanted them to release a higher end APS-C line, kind of like what they did with the FS5 and FS7. But whether that's going to happen, whether that'll take the storm out of full frame cameras because it's potentially cheaper, but same performance.
I mean, if they came out with like an let's make it up a number, A6700 or A7000 or something that had, a 24, 30 megapixel sensor in it, but it had the 10-bit color science and like codecs that we get in like the A7S III, like I'd consider buying one with a couple of Sigma lenses. Like that would be pretty cool,
Absolutely.
But there's a lot of tech that they have to put a lot of energy into redesigning that. I don't know if they're going to.
And then the great thing about having like an interview setup, you literally throw your full frame glass on there and you've got just that extra reach.
Yep.
And it's just like, wow, because sometimes you want that really nice tight shot of someone if it's an emotional piece. And yeah, I think it's a great opportunity, but I don't know if it's going to happen. That's a tough thing.
I mean, there's a lot of benefits to APS-C too. I mean, you get a faster readout from the sensor because it's smaller, less heat, all that stuff that you get from a smaller sensor. You get better IBIS, like the Panasonic camera, like the GH6, like with their Micro Four. They're like they have the best IBIS on the smaller sensors. So there's a lot of benefits, but I don't see it happening. That's just my personal opinion. But I have no idea what's coming down the pike. So.
Yeah, it might come down to sales too. Like obviously Sony are a business and you want to run a business to be financially beneficial. And if it's not making money, then you obviously don't make the cameras.
New APS-C in September.
He's calling it. He's calling it.
I hope so. I mean, the more cameras, the better. Unless they can't keep up with the cameras that they already have, Sony. Come on.
Yeah, so in terms of let's talk about that in terms of new cameras this year. So it really depends on if they can actually support this. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think what happened is kind of what I said before is like they thought the A7 IV was going to be, and it is an awesome camera, and I think it just wasn't quite the same industry-changing camera as the A7 III was. I think it also had to do with the $2,000 price point. I think that makes a big difference, being over that now. But they're spending all their energy in that, and it seems like, because I totally expect it to be out of stock. And it's like, okay, well, can I have an FX3, an FX6, an A7S III? I can't buy any of those cameras right now. Nobody can. Yep. So why would they be pushing out other cameras? And you're starting to see this now. I'm hearing Canon delaying, like they can't get their R3s out, or R5C. I just heard they just recalled some from Australia or something. Do you see?
Oh shit! Really? No.
Yeah.
What happened?
I saw I don't know. I saw an article about it. I don't know if it was true or not. But anyways, yeah, I think that's the issue. Is like why there's already cameras that are great right now that people want. Like, let those run for a while. But
yeah,
again, it comes down to sales. Like, if they can put out $1,000 APS-C camera that's got 10-bit 422 in it, like, they'll probably sell a lot of them.
Yeah, I think so. That's an interesting one about the A7C as well, is that eventually you could imagine that the A7 IV will be the A7C too, just obviously without some of the features that the A7 IV has, because that's kind of what they did with the A7 III with the A7C.
Mm-hmm.
They just recycled that sensor and pretty much all the tech, put a flip screen on it, and
that
there
was
you go.
A weird camera. I mean, I've owned the A7C and it is a great camera, but it was like it's just an A7 III, like with a flip screen. I think it was just a holdover camera is kind of how I thought about it. Nothing against that camera. It's great. Like,
you can imagine they sold a few. Yeah. You could definitely imagine they sold a few of them.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be cool to see an A7 IV in a slightly smaller body, maybe with no EVF. I don't know.
Yeah. Do you use the EVF much?
Never.
Yep. I think I used it yesterday when I was doing photography just to check some of my images, and that was it.
No, I have it turned off, so I don't even turn it on by accident when my hand goes across the sensor.
Just a quick one by Paul Choi. Yeah, the 35 is better than the 85 in terms of sharpness, but they're different focal lengths, so it's kind of hard to compare, one focal length over another. But it really depends on if you're shooting portraits. 85 might be your go. Just stop it down. Don't shoot at f1.4. It's pretty crazy. Your depth of field's like this.
Or crop mode on the A7 IV on the 35.
There you go. That could be a go. That could be a go. Yes, there are so many people waiting for cameras. So going back to that, to understand if Sony are going to be releasing another camera, you would have to understand what's the situation in the world about these silicon chips. Is there going to be enough? They can't even, give us the FX3. They can't give us the FX6. They can't give us all these cameras.
Is it the same for you? Like, is all that stuff out of stock?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. I'm not sure about the A7S III. I think you can still get them.
Okay.
But yeah, FX3 and FX6 are just extremely popular. They're all back ordered, so yeah, no chance.
Yeah, I even went just like after I was like, I want another FX3 or an FX6. You can't get either of them, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll get an A7S. They're all out of stock now everywhere too. So
Yeah.
and you go on eBay and there people are getting more than new for it. I'm like, this is insane.
That's bad. Funny story, but kind of not funny. A mate of mine, he just got the FX6, brand new, kind of jumped the queue. I don't know how. He just talked his way into it, and he found one. He called every store around in Australia, called everywhere. He's like, can I get a demo? There's no demos around. And he just found a store that was bringing one in, and he got his hands on it before some other people. So it's kind of funny, but kind of not for people who are waiting.
Yeah, I reached out to that's what a lot of people have been saying is like, forget the big places like B&H, Adorama, like those bigger suppliers in the US.
Yeah.
I reached out to maybe 10 or 15 independent camera stores, and everyone's like, oh, we got a wait list of 15, and you need to give me a deposit. I'm like, no, not going to happen.
Yeah, especially if you're giving them a deposit and you don't know when it's going to arrive either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's crazy. I ended up ordering directly through Sony, and it came a little bit quicker.
They're out of stock. Like I checked Sony's website too. Like there aren't any cameras out there. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It drives me crazy that people are selling them for over new price. That's just, I think that's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, that's ridiculous. Anyway, we probably should wrap up. We've been going on for 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Well, I guess we got a lot to talk about, Jason, so that's good that we got on and we were able to chat with everybody.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. If anyone wants to see Josh's channel, link will be in the description below. There was also a link put in the comments of a couple of his other videos, but it will be in the description below. I'll be releasing another video with Josh this coming week, or maybe depends on another video is going to be coming out in a couple of days, which I can't talk about, but it'll be coming. But yeah, definitely thank you for coming on to today's live and making it probably more interesting than just my face. Thank you for everyone for sticking around. There's been like 15 to 30 people depending on the time, but yeah, thank you for watching and supporting both of us. Subscribe to Josh, check out our stuff. There's going to be more coming from us. Yeah, would you like to say anything to the people?
I've been chatting for 2 hours. People know who I am, what I do. But thanks everyone for coming today. I'm psyched to collaborate with you, Jason, and more to come.
Awesome, man. I'll see everyone later. See you, Josh.